The winds of the ancient formation roared like a silent storm, carrying with them the weight of countless trials that had swallowed prodigies whole. Within this unforgiving battlefield, the tides of elimination surged once more, yet this time it was not only the second tier that faltered. Even the third tier, once filled with hopeful talents, began to crumble, and in the midst of that collapsing rank, only one figure remained. Ling Han stood alone. From beyond the formation, countless spectators could not help but laugh in disbelief. It almost seemed as if wherever this man stepped, misfortune followed. Tears shattered, companions vanished, and all that remained was him, standing solitary like a lone mountain in a crumbling world. But those with sharp eyes quickly saw through the illusion. This was not misfortune. This was dominance. He was simply too strong. The others could not keep up. What began as over 100 prodigies had now dwindled to fewer than 50, each one struggling forward like mortals wading through a storm of blades. Their breaths grew heavy, their movements slower with every step, yet still they pushed on, unwilling to surrender their pride. Ahead, the four supreme prodigies of the first tier made their move. Almost simultaneously, their hands reached for their weapons. Cold steel gleamed. They no longer dared to rely on their bare fists. The stone statues before them were no ordinary enemies. One misstep, one moment of arrogance, and they would be cast out of the formation like discarded stones. And for beings hailed as prodigies, failure was not merely defeat, it was humiliation. It would shatter the radiant halos above their heads. Meanwhile, amidst the storm of fists and divine patterns, Ling Han endured. At first the blows had been nothing, mere taps like a breeze brushing against his body. Then came discomfort, then pain, and now each strike felt like a grown man's heavy hand smashing down upon a child, sharp, resounding, impossible to ignore. Damn, this hurts, Ling Han muttered inwardly. Yet pain was not injury, and injury had yet to claim him. His fearless spirit remained unbroken. Still, he understood. This was only the fourth stage. When the fifth stage arrived, everything would change. The fists of these stone statues would no longer merely sting. They would threaten to tear flesh, to spill blood, to truly injure him. His gaze sharpened. These statues, their strength is only at the early consummate level of the mountain river tier, yet their power surpasses it. The answer lay in something deeper. Regulations. The unseen laws of the heavens. The statues wielded them, not as cultivators did, clumsily and incompletely, but with terrifying purity. It was this mastery that elevated their attacks beyond their apparent level, granting them lethal force that defied reason. Around him, the remaining prodigies slowed once more. Their steps grew heavier. Their movements faltered, but Ling Han did not change. His pace remained steady, unyielding, like a blade cutting through water. Slowly, the distance between tiers began to collapse. The lone survivor of the third tier advanced, step by step, until he merged into the second tier. Now, only two tiers remained, and then the fifth stage arrived. As if awakened by an ancient decree, a fourth divine pattern ignited upon the fists of the stone statues. In an instant, blood sprayed into the air. More than a dozen prodigies were blasted out of the formation, their bodies flung back like broken leaves in a storm, yet none perished. Those who had reached this stage were not ordinary cultivators. They were prodigies among prodigies, each possessing life-saving techniques that barely preserved their lives, even as they suffered grievous wounds. Within the chaos, Ling Han finally felt it. Pressure, true pressure. A punch landed. His skin split, blood seeped out, pain surged through his body like fire. Now this is something, he thought grimly. No longer could he rely on brute endurance. No longer could he face the statues head-on. His strategy shifted instantly. His movements became fluid, like a dragon weaving through clouds. His hands unleashed the annihilating dragon star arrow, piercing through distant statues with destructive force. Closer enemies, he cut down with his fast technique, his strikes swift and precise like flashes of lightning. The statues had grown stronger in attack, but their defenses remained unchanged. This was the flaw he exploited. With his offensive power rising, his speed, unchanged for so long, finally surged forward. He broke past the second tier and began closing in on the first. Outside the formation, those who had already failed, including the spear-wielding man, watched in stunned silence. Their expressions twisted, their eyes widened. It was as if they had seen a ghost. This is monstrous, Even Xiao Wuke, once the embodiment of unmatched brilliance, now seemed dim in comparison. In this vast world, there were always greater peaks beyond the mountains one had already climbed. Ahead, the four prodigies of the first tier sensed something, a presence. They turned, and what they saw nearly shattered their composure. Ling Han, catching up. At their level, arrogance was not arrogance, it was confidence forged through countless victories. Whether facing hundreds or thousands, they believed themselves invincible. Thus, they had only ever regarded each other as rivals. The lower tiers, irrelevant, unworthy. But now, a man from below had risen and was closing the gap. And worse, he was only at the high extreme of the mountain river tier. This was unacceptable. Xiaowuke's face turned ashen. Before, he had dismissed Ling Han entirely. Now, Ling Han was catching him. This was no longer competition. This was humiliation, a slap across his face, and he, Xiaowuk, had never been one to accept such disgrace. With a roar in his heart, he pushed forward. His speed surged. The burden on his body increased dramatically. If this had been the final stage, he could have risked everything in one last sprint. But this was only the fifth stage. To force himself now meant risking collapse before the end. Yet he could not tolerate being overtaken. Not while Xuanyu watched. Not while his pride burned within him. Golden light erupted from his body. His arms transformed, shimmering like divine metal forged in heavenly fire. He charged forward, enduring the statue's attacks head-on, unscathed. This was his invincible state. But it would not last, so he pushed, faster, further, creating distance, buying time. Behind him, Ling Han merely scoffed inwardly. Fool. Xiaowu treated him as a rival, but Ling Han did not even consider him worthy. Not yet. Only those who could form 5 mountains and rivers, only true 10-star geniuses, could stand beside him, and though he had not reached that realm yet, he would, in time. As realization dawned upon him, Ling Han's eyes gleamed. This formation was designed for 10-star geniuses. Each stage corresponded to an additional star of power. 10 stars, 10 stages. Thus, among everyone present, perhaps only he had the potential to pass it, not because of cultivation, but because of something far more terrifying, his physique, his recovery, his monstrous resilience. And with that thought came another. If I pass, what reward awaits? The answer lingered like a hidden treasure beyond the storm. Then the 6th stage descended. The stone statues grew even more ferocious. Their attacks became sharper, heavier, more deadly. Here, a truth revealed itself. Power alone did not define battle prowess. Yet this was a special circumstance, because the statues wielded regulations beyond the mountain river tier, forces no cultivator at this level could truly comprehend. At this point, tiers no longer mattered. Only 5 remained. Ling Han, Xiewuke, Shao Sisi, Su Jing, Duan, 5 figures, 5 peaks. The formation had become a crucible. Who would fall first? Who would endure to the end? Who would break through and become the unrivaled genius? Outside, not a single spectator left. They remained, eyes locked upon the battlefield, determined to witness the final outcome. Within the formation, pressure descended like a mountain. Even Ling Han felt fear. A full power strike now could draw blood from him. If it was so for him, then the others suffered even more, yet they possessed their own advantages. Higher cultivation, greater power, their attacks overwhelmed the statues, leaving no openings. Thus, despite weaker defenses, they maintained their ground. The 5 figures pressed forward. Step by step, sweat soaked their bodies. Breaths grew ragged. This was no longer merely a test of strength. This was a trial of will, and only those whose hearts were unbreakable would reach the end. The oppressive force of the formation descended like a mountain of ancient iron, crushing down upon all who dared to advance. Under such suffocating pressure, even the most resolute hearts trembled, and many who had stepped forward with confidence now found their steps faltering, their wills wavering. Yet among them, Xiaowuke and the remaining 3 stood like unyielding pillars. Though they had yet to form their 5th mountain and river, though they had not reached the realm of 10-star brilliance, their presence alone carried the dignity of sovereigns. Each movement bore the calm authority of kings, their eyes unwavering, their spirits unbroken. Teeth clenched, blood boiling, they pressed onward. Not one retreated. Then, the 7th stage revealed itself. At once, their momentum collapsed. What had once been a steady advance slowed to a crawl, as though the very air had thickened into chains binding their limbs. Every step forward became a battle, every breath a struggle. Ling Han's gaze sharpened as he observed the formation was not as exaggerated as he had first believed. The first stage, true to its design, reflected the early stage of the consummate level. With each passing stage, the strength of the stone statues rose by a single star. And now, in the seventh stage, each statue carried a terrifying might, 3 stars above the peak of the consummate level. Individually, these statues were nothing to Xiaowuke and the others. One alone could be shattered with ease. Even dozens together would not inspire fear. But here, there were not dozens, there were hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands. An endless tide of stone warriors surged like a boundless ocean, their numbers alone reshaping the very nature of the battlefield. A single star's gap could be bridged with tenfold numbers. 1,000 statues could bury even a 6-star genius alive. And now, surrounded by an army without end, even these prodigies felt despair creep into their hearts. Worse still, this was only the seventh stage. Beyond this lay 3 more layers of escalating terror. If the pattern continued, the 10th stage would forge monsters with power 6 stars above the consummate peak. Just one of those statues could rival Xiaowuke or the others, and yet here they would face them not alone. But in overwhelming numbers, passing the 10th stage, it was nothing short of a fantasy. Ling Han's thoughts stirred quietly, so his earlier judgment had been flawed, yet the conclusion remained unchanged. Only those at the level of a 10-star genius could truly conquer this place. He lowered his gaze, contemplating his own body, his defenses, his regenerative power. Could they carry him through? Even he could not say. His cultivation was still too low. If his physique could ascend once more, if he could reach the realm of level 5 godly metal, then this formation would become nothing more than a stroll beneath the heavens. But even now, what he displayed was already enough to send shockwaves through all who watched. 6 sub-minor levels below the others. And yet he advanced beside them. If he were to stand at the same cultivation level, would he not crush them all with ease? Xiaowuke and the others felt their hearts tighten. What kind of monstrous physique was this? Against such resilience, would even 5 or 6 stars of battle prowess suffice? Meanwhile, Ling Han surged forward. Compared to the others, his situation was far less dire. Though the statues possessed devastating offensive power, their actual cultivation remained rooted in the early consummate stage, far beneath his own strength. He abandoned hesitation. Defense became his shield, endurance his weapon. When he could not evade, he met their blows head-on, flesh split, blood scattered. His body was riddled with wounds. Yet within him, the indestructible heaven's scroll pulsed like an eternal flame, mending, restoring, defying destruction itself. Each injury vanished as swiftly as it came. Step by step, he advanced. And then, he surpassed Duan. The 4th position changed hands. Duan's expression darkened, displeasure flickering across his face. For a fleeting moment, the thought of unleashing his hidden strength surged within him. He, too, possessed a trump card, a burst of overwhelming power. But reason prevailed. Without 10-star battle prowess, breaking through this formation was impossible. To reveal his trump card now, under countless watchful eyes, would bring no reward. Only loss. With a cold breath, he stepped aside. He chose to withdraw. Outside, the crowd erupted in astonishment. Ling Han had already forced a supreme prodigy to retreat, and it seemed this was only the beginning. Moments later, Ling Han overtook Su Jing, 3rd place, claimed. Yet just as swiftly, it shifted again. For Su Jing, too, abandoned the trial. The spectators could no longer contain their amazement. This was no longer merely impressive. This was beyond comprehension. Could he truly reach 1st place? Could he even pass the formation? What once sounded like a joke now hovered on the edge of reality. A high-extreme cultivator possessing such power? Unthinkable, yet undeniable. Ling Han pressed forward until he stood beside Xiao Sisi. Amidst the chaos of battle, she turned, her smile blooming like a flower amidst a storm. "I am Xiao Sisi," she said, her voice gentle despite the raging tide. "May I know this brother's name?" Her beauty shimmered, her presence captivating, yet Ling Han remained unmoved. "Ling Han," he replied calmly. "Brother Ling," she continued with a soft laugh. "Shall we meet again after this?" Ling Han nodded. "No problem." With that, he strode past her, and like the others, she too withdrew from the formation. Now only 2 remained, Xiaowuk and Ling Han. Within Xiaowuke, conflict raged. He knew this was a battle without meaning. Victory was impossible. Continuing served no purpose. And yet, Ling Han was behind him. To retreat before him, that was something he could never accept. His pride burned like a raging inferno, forcing his feet forward, driving him deeper into a hopeless struggle. Then, the eighth stage descended. The stone statues transformed once more. 7 divine patterns ignited upon their fists, glowing with terrifying brilliance. Their destructive power surged. Though they could not strike all at once, dozens, hundreds could attack together. There was no room to dodge, only to endure. Wah! Shewuke coughed up blood the moment he was struck. Prodigy or not, he was not invincible. Each statue now rivaled him in strength, and under their combined assault, even he teetered on collapse. It was then he saw it, Ling Han, overtaking him. Pooh! Another mouthful of blood burst forth. But this time it was rage. The one he had once dismissed had surpassed him. How could he accept this? Killing intent erupted within his eyes. For a fleeting moment, he sought to strike, but the sea of stone swallowed him whole. There was no opening. No chance. Darkness descended as countless statues surged toward him. All he could do was defend and retreat to the side. Ling Han cast a brief glance back. Though no attack had come, the killing intent had not escaped his notice. A faint trace of disdain flickered within his gaze. Such a narrow heart would never reach true heights. He turned forward once more. His focus sharpened. He had come this far. He would not stop now. Gravity divine patterns surged from his body, distorting the battlefield. The movements of the statues faltered, their assaults disrupted. The pressure lessened, and in that instant, Ling Han exploded forward. This was his advantage. Though the statues struck with terrifying force, their foundations remained flawed. Their cultivation was too low, and Ling Han seized that weakness without mercy. From the outside, voices trembled with disbelief. If this continues, he might actually pass. There are only 2 stages left. Even Xiaowuke had failed. Yet now, a cultivator of the high extreme stood on the brink of success. Impossible. Yet unfolding before their very eyes, and Ling Han only grew faster. His power surpassed the statues. They could wound him, tear his flesh, scatter his blood across the ground, but they could not stop him. Not even for a heartbeat. He became like a streaking arrow, his speed rising, surging, breaking limits as he charged toward the end of the formation.